Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hi everyone, it's Jory Rose. I hope you are staying healthy and staying sane as you are home and are quarantining and shelter in place during this pandemic. I am offering daily tools in my Journey Forward Facebook group, and if you go to the show notes, there's an invitation for you to join the group. 4 mornings a week, I am guiding short morning meditations to ground and center you. 4 evenings a week, I am doing mindfulness tools. Wednesdays at 12:15, I'm guiding a longer meditation, about 30 minutes. Sunday mornings at 10:30, I'm also doing a 30-minute meditation. And Saturdays at 11, I'm answering any Q&A. So I'm really broadening my community to provide tools and support and guidance in how mindfulness and meditation can help you journey forward through this worldwide pandemic that we're all being affected by. So please join me if you'd like extra tools. I'm also taking virtual clients. If you're finding you're experiencing extra stress or anxiety or fears right now, please reach out and know that I am here to support you. I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode, as I know it's going to, again, offer great tools and support and how we can all get through this together. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay sane. Be well.
Hi, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I am really looking forward to the conversation today with Francis Piche. Francis, welcome. I'm so glad that we have the time to connect today. I know you're doing really amazing and important work in the world, and I can't wait to share with our listeners what it is that you're doing. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Jory. Well, Francis Piche, French-Canadian that recently immigrated in a way in US. I got my visa and I'm so happy about it. I'm talking about it all the time, so sorry about the excitement. It's just I feel it's a good milestone. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. And what I do is I'm a mindset coach, especially on resilience. And we're also up to big things where we're building a documentary featuring the stories of people that have made it big, have dealt with obstacle, adversity, setbacks, and despite all the odds, made it happen. And also creating a mobile platform community so that people can not only get inspired with a movie, but also continue to change their behaviors, maintain their resilience on the highest level. So it's a big project, and I'm super happy to say that our goal, our moonshot, is to impact 1 billion people in a decade.
Well, I'm happy to have any piece in contributing to getting your message out there because it's so important. And we spoke a couple of days ago, which made me feel like, oh, I need to have you on the podcast. This isn't just a connection that someone was lucky to introduce the two of us just in doing some similar work, but really just wanted to promote the work you're doing. And one of the things that caught my attention was in the way you shared how you define resilience.
Yeah, well, I'll borrow it from one of my partners. Her name is Taryn, and Taryn's an amazing individual. And instead of saying, most of the time people would qualify resilience as the capacity to bounce back. And I believe that it's, and like Taryn would say, it's bouncing forward, because we're never going back to the same spot. We always have that growth factor in it. And I truly believe that any breakdown that we have in our lives is always turning into a breakthrough. And that's a way of looking at it. Sometimes people don't see it. And I believe that there's always a growth when we change our perspective.
I love that, to bounce forward. And I mean, it just works so perfectly with my branding of Journey Forward. It was just so spot on. But it spoke to that process of this is a journey. And we do not know where the twists and turns are going to take us. But with the right perspective, we will see that it's still forward progress, even if it sometimes feels like backward motion.
Totally, 100%.
And, so my big passion in the work that I do is to help people connect those dots and say, okay, so this is the process. This isn't about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's really about the journey. And it's about how are you being present, even with what's shitty, even with what's hard? How do we work with what's difficult, which then a lot of what we both do, you and I, is that mindset. Yeah. So how did you even get to this work? Because this isn't what you started off doing.
No, I've been in sales all my life, even starting at 8 years old, knocking on door, getting calendars for the scouts, and I went on the corporate ladder, as a lot of people have done in the past. We think the society at that time was you climb the ladder, you get successful when, and that's very important that I'm underlying the word when. You'll be successful when.
Right.
You have,
which then usually translates into you'll be happy when.
Exactly.
You'll be successful when. These arbitrary route markers.
Yeah, it's never now. It's never ever now. So like you said, it's in your journey. So you always put the goalpost and you're thinking, well, I'm gonna be happy when I have this job. I'm gonna happy when I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna happy when I'm gonna have my first house. And then when I'm gonna, like, you're even thinking about, and then I'll sell the house and I'll buy a bigger one. And then when I have the car, and it's a never ending game. And for me, I guess the spirituality came in when I felt that I had a pretty, really good start. Went to a great school, great university. I had an exchange student program in Sweden, trade mission in Argentina. I was 21 years old. And
wow,
I think it was 23, 24. And, I was working in a international corporate company, was part of an executive program where I would be an executive in the future. So everything was aligned. And I remember that even at that point, I never felt really that happy. First of all, the job was not really something I wanted. I decided to have it for the money more than my heart. And then I decided to take a change in my life, and I decided to work for Xerox. And I remember that first week, what happened is that not only the computer they gave me, I got lost 2 days after. So I had to go back, and how stressful you can be. You're the computer you gave me yesterday, well, it's gone. I don't know how. And, you just hope you're going to be still employed. And the day after that, I came in a living room, and my girlfriend was, at the time, fiance, was waiting for me. And she said, I got to talk to you. I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And then she said, well, I'd like to cancel the wedding.
Oh, wow.
3 months before the due date. So I had a big slap in my face, I guess, at that time. And I just started to really explore spirituality a little bit more. My first book was The Alchemist. And, and then,
that's a fabulous book. That's always a great entree into spiritual practice.
Yeah. And
but I love that you were given an opportunity to decide, okay, here are these challenges. Here's what's being thrown my way. I get to choose what I want to do with this.
Yeah, and it didn't come right away. That's the thing. I mean, that's I guess with the work that we do right now, we can help and guide a lot of people because we've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, since that time, I lost my job in a economic downturn. I was demoted. And it was always about, I think, when I was not really following my heart, things were happening, and thank you life that just brought me back to the right path. And so we never really see that at first. We're thinking, well, why is it happening to me? And
why me? Why? Yeah. Why?
And there's so much work that, we can share about that. I'm sure it's to recognize at one point that, well, if you follow your heart, and that's the best thing to do, because otherwise you'll have those situations in your life where it's just going to bring you back to that path. And now I know, I'm almost excited, Jory, that if there's a breakdown, I know that there's going to be a breakthrough. And I would ask the people listening or watching, think about a time that was really, sorry to say, shitty. And now 5-10 years after, what are the outcomes that for sure would have not happened if this thing wasn't in your life? So, it might be the people you met. It might be a new situation that come in that for sure if this thing would have not happened, I would not be in the same place. And I believe that there's a lot of blessings that always happen for those reasons. So
yeah, I fully agree. And, it's interesting how, like on Facebook or Instagram, it'll pop up your memories, right? From a year, previous years. The other day, a memory popped up from a post that I did that sometimes, do you ever do some of your own work and you're like, wow, that was really awesome. Like you're really proud of the content you put out. So this particular post was, I'm going to have to spell it out because it's differently phonetically sounding than when you see it on your computer screen or on your phone. But it was from wise to wise. And it was WHY to wise, W-I-S-E. And I love that idea of we go from asking why, and I believe that those whys that we constantly are getting stuck in keep us stuck. It keeps us externalizing the blame or the anger or the frustration or looking like there had to be something wrong. But the whys, the wisdom that we want to turn to can just say, I can accept it. I may not get it right away. I may not understand it right away. I may even not like it right now. And there's wisdom in accepting it. Because when we ask why, we're in resistance, we're in denial, we're not accepting. And then we stay disconnected. So I forgot to reshare that post because it was such a good one, from wise to wise, right?
Well, we're going to reinforce this post because, you know, it's funny. I think it's a synchronicity. I was just getting ready and I had that thought, which was very similar. So I think we're guided. This is the thing. It's, you know, for me, I think, and that's a message, I guess I thought about what is it? What is the gem that I want to tell people? And I think it's to take 100% responsibility of everything that happened, and even in the wrong doings or the setbacks, the adversity, because like you said, when you're asking why to me, you don't own it. It means that the power was given to the circumstance and it was never you. And then that means in the end, you're never in control. You're never in control. And I think that one of the, exactly. And I think that, and I've learned it, especially for the last year, that we get what we tolerate. But that's, and you know, so for me, when I look at this relationship that was a long-term relationship, I tolerated a lot of the things that led to that.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise that this came at the end. It's not a surprise also that I was demoted in a way, because, you know, even though it didn't look fair based on the performance I had versus other people, you know, life told me, you're not even motivated. You're not even passionate. Yes. Okay. So it's not bad compared to a lot of people, but that's not serving you. So sorry, I'm going to have to demote you. And a great book that I think people can read that will bring a lot of healing, I at least for me, it did, is the book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael A.J. Singer. And this is a way of... I'm
going to have to add that to my like ever-growing stack of books that I keep buying. Okay, The Surrender Experiment.
Yeah, and you know what? I believe you like The Alchemist, right?
Yeah.
So I feel it's almost like the modern version of The Alchemist in the way that this book was written in the midst of a storm for this author that built a company of over $1 billion revenue and was really saying he was accused of fraud and wrongly accused of fraud. And in that moment, that's when he wrote The Untethered Soul, which, you know, is a great book that people understand. So The Surrender Experiment is talking about his journey when he decided to really surrender to what life brings. And even if it's not good, but you understand now that it always led to a different situation. So when you start to trust what happens in your life and take responsibility for it, I believe it brings a lot of magic.
I do too. So how did you go from these life experiences to now actually doing it professionally, of becoming a mindset coach and working with resilience?
Well, yeah, I think it, you know, obviously lots of years of certifications, either in communication and sales, and, you know, with the mindset, I hired a coach probably 5 years ago. And then I just knew that I wanted to guide people. And the big exercise that he gave me, which is an exercise that I highly recommend to people, and it's also in my guide that, you know, I'm sure you can give for free, the quick start guide of the resilience element formula, was that he said, Francis, I want you to do an exercise. I know you're not going to like it. Do you want to do it? Because I was in that dilemma of choosing something that I truly love and it's scary, or the other one that's using my strength, but it's more on the safe side. And I said, okay, so I'll do the exercise, not knowing what he wanted me to do. And I was a bit frustrated about that. I was like, sure, I'll do it. And he said, okay, I want you to do nothing for 3 days. What do you mean 3 days? I just told you I'm ready to go. It's time for me to act. I feel like I need to do it. Yeah, you heard me, doing nothing. And he said, I don't want you to journal. Don't want you to watch TV. I don't want you to watch social media. And then I'm thinking, well, what's left? Can I meditate? Yes, you can. Can I have a walk? Yeah. Can you meet my friend? Yeah. But don't do anything else. Like, just Just do
Just
nothing.
be.
And then at the end of that, before the end of the coaching, he said, and I want you to do another thing. Go in your agenda from now, go 5 years from now and write something on that page. I said, okay. And then I'm, calendar, phone, whatever. Okay. He said, now that you're in, write this. This is the day that I die. So what are you going to do in between, Francis? So what are you going to do? What's the point of living? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to be with? What's the point? And then I felt, if it was a challenge of a week, probably I would say, Jory, that's great. We're talking right now. Gotta go. Only have 1 week to live. I hope your listeners are having fun.
You're lovely, but I got more important things to go talk about or go do.
Yeah, and 3 months, you'll probably say, well, I'll go travel, I'll do all these things, and a year maybe if you have all the financial means. But 5 years is a big time to say, hey, I want to have an impact and a legacy in this world. And so I was always attracted by reading books on success, and I discovered very quickly that those people that had high success didn't have it easy. They always were in a fork at one point, and they either gave up or they continued. So to me, that was a resilience mindset. I said, I want to discover that. I want to share that because I believe that's the difference between being in jail or being free. And you can be either in the fear mode or being in freedom. And so I wanted to share. I wanted to understand it because to me, that was the best thing. And then I felt, if I have 5 years, that's what I want to do. I don't know how to do it. I've never made a movie. I have to put myself on the line, go all in. And I created the trailer, and now we're just like advancing in that project. And we're going to be 8 partners, which I'm not alone anymore. So, but if you ask me how to do it, I didn't know how. I didn't know how, but I made a declaration, and in my mind, it was so important. I had so much conviction that that's what it meant for me to live, to contribute and leave a legacy. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the real point?
Well, and when you get that clear focus, the how finds a way of working itself out too.
Yeah. And beautiful lessons along the way. Like I say, you get what you tolerate. That is a big one, in relationships and business, sometimes it's just because we're afraid of making a bold request, how come I don't have that much money from my salary or this from my partner, and yet we're not doing anything. And or we're saying it's going to happen in the future. Sometimes I'm going to do that. Well, this sometimes can take forever. That could be 5 years, 10 years. You got to decide now. And by deciding now, even if you fail, you're getting closer to your goals. So, I like to say, and like one of my friends say, I never be in the gray zone. It's either black or white. Choose white. You'll see if it was right choice. And if it's not white, then go black, but go all in. Just don't be in the middle.
Yeah, it's like that hell yes or hell no.
Yeah.
I like to clarify for some people, to me, that's just being more discerning. Like the more you know yourself and the clearer you are when you're able to get out of your head and out of the stories or the shoulds or the expectations, I find that it's a lot easier once you're in that alignment to know what is the yes and the no, to know what's all in or to know what's not all in. I think it's when we're out of alignment with ourselves, it's a lot harder to know which choice to make or how to trust our choices.
Absolutely. And I'll make a distinction because I don't know, it just popped up in my head. It was totally agree with that. That's why the slowing down really helps. And I know you're an advocate of that. And so slowing down helps you to get some clarity. And especially when you have 3 days of doing nothing, this is the beauty and the gift of that. And then also being present with the fact that we have no idea when we're going to go. So what's the point? And if some people are wondering, well, but I don't know what my goals are, and I don't know, it's not clear to me. And even if I do the 3 days, or even if I say it's just an excuse, try something, be curious. You'll get a feedback from something, because otherwise, if you're just in the middle and you're just thinking and you're not doing anything, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. Do you know who Dan Millman is?
No.
Okay. So my recommendation, if you so choose, is to go find some of his books, but he has been my greatest spiritual teacher. And he's most well known for his book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which came out in the 80s. But my favorite book of his is called The Laws of the Universe. And in The Laws of the Universe, he goes through I think there's 12 universal truths, the laws of spirit. The laws of spirit. So he's going through these universal truths, but he tells them in a way of storytelling. And two things I wanted to share that brought up is in the laws of spirit, he tells it like he lived in Northern California, which was true at the time. And he goes in his backyard, he goes for a hike up in the hills, and he meets this old wise sage up in the mountains. And he says in the beginning, if you were to meet your highest self as an old wise sage, what would be the journey that it would take you on? And so this is the journey that this old wise sage takes him on in his journey through what was like 3 days up in the hills behind his house. And my favorite one is, I think he calls it the law of action, where they're on this hike and they're at a fork in the road, and this old wise sage turns to him and says, okay, which path are you going to take? And he points and he says, I'm going to take this one. She says, okay, which path are you going to take? And again, he points. And she very calmly responds, okay, so which path are you going to take? And he starts to get frustrated. He's like, I've answered this 3 times, and he points. She then says again, so which path are you going to take? And he takes a step forward. And he says, I'm taking this one. Because we can stand at that fork in the road all the time and point and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But until you take the step forward, you're not doing anything but pointing your finger.
Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. I love
that. His book is full, The Laws of Spirit. Every chapter is that simple in its wisdom. Yeah. And I've been on a retreat with him 3 separate times. And my absolute most life-transforming experience has been on retreat with him. And I've shared that story many times on the podcast, so I'll have to share it offline because I don't want to bore the listeners with my same story of breaking a board. But to sum it up is, we get stuck on our obstacles, and that prevents us from moving forward. But when we can see past the obstacle to see our goal or our intention or our end point, then the obstacles become just mere obstacles.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, definitely.
And so on retreat, I had to break a board. And once I broke through that, it was like I no longer had any excuse, because I knew when the first time I didn't break it, it was my mindset that was in the wrong place. It was the wrong focus. It was the wrong energy. I believed in self-doubt. I allowed myself to see the obstacle as the end point, rather than breaking through the board, which was just the obstacle to get to the cushion, which was underneath it. And once I broke through, it was like, oh man, no more of my self-doubt excuses that could apply anymore, because I know them not to be true.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with it. Last year I went to cliff jumping, and so it's 12 meters, right? So you're thinking, oh, big obstacle. And then I was talking to someone, and there's 2 stories I don't want to share quickly. And one of them was that another person that I know did the bungee jumping, and she was relating to this journey of doing the bungee jumping. And in a very summary, she said that the longest journey, or the hardest, was not the jump. It was the preparation of the jumping, and the fear and everything. Because, it's hell. It's hell until you do it. And to relate to maybe some of the entrepreneurs that are listening, and I was guilty of it many times, and I'm still going through the same motion. Couple tricks you can do, the Mel Robbins trick, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 seconds rule. But the reality is that a lot of us sometimes we're looking at, if I want to launch this, or if let's say jumping, right? You want to jump. Well, before I jump, I'd like to see everybody that jumped. I'd like to interview them and see how the jump was and how they got ready. And, and then I'll be able to jump. And then you do all that. And then you realize, well, I interviewed some people, but I'd like to know, maybe reading about this. I should read about this. And then, I'll know everything about jumping. And then you just read everything about jumping. And then you realize, oh, well, it's been 2 years, so must be having new techniques.
It must have changed by now, yeah.
And then you're never jumping, right? So the best way to jump and know how to jump is to jump. That's it. And you get the feedback, and so you realize, and usually it's just fear. That we know it. And so how do you get rid of fear?
I've got to add on to that before you go to your second story. Dan Millman, same guy. tells that
I got to read this thing now.
Oh, you're going to love it.
I'm so connected to his message.
Yeah, this was not something that was in one of his books. He told this story on retreat. So I've been on retreat with him in upstate New York, but I've been twice with him in Costa Rica. And in Costa Rica, they always have opportunity to go ziplining. And so he said one of the first retreats, he actually went on the ziplining tour with the group. And since he's been back to this location so many times, he doesn't go ziplining every time anymore. But this lady was really, really scared. And so they were, on the ground, getting the preparation, listening to the guy's instruction. And I'll be creative in my storytelling around, but you'll get the gist of his story. But, so she's like putting on the harness and she starts freaking out. And Dan Millman turns to her and says, like, what, you've never put on a harness before? She's like, oh, I can do that. Okay. And then they start walking and they have to climb to the ladder to get to the platform on the tree. And she starts having a panic attack climbing the ladder. And Dan Millman turns to her and says, you've never climbed a ladder before? She goes, oh, okay. Like she was anticipating so much fear. And he just kept bringing her back, like, you're just climbing a ladder. And then they get to the top of the ladder, they're standing on the platform and she's freaking out. And he goes, you've never stood next to a tree before? And she was like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then as she was getting hooked up, about to be scared, about to go off, she got scared and looked at him. He goes, okay, now be scared. Like, be scared the moment you're going to jump right off. Like, you don't need to waste all this energy being afraid of the harness, be afraid of climbing the tree, standing next to a tree. So it's like when you do it, then I guess all emotions are appropriate at any time, but we give so much power to these emotions when they're just our fear running wild. Our mind going to what ifs or worst case or associations that don't have anything to do with what we're actually, managing in that moment. So I love the whole, like, what, you've never stood next to a tree before? Like, oh, okay. Yeah. It just kind of puts it back into perspective of, look how much anticipation we are in of fear. So when you're about to jump off the ledge, sure, that's an appropriate time to let the fear take over just a little bit and breathe and maybe enjoy the process and don't be so afraid of it along the way.
And it made me think of, because I did a jump before of 40 feet or something, which I think relates to almost 12 meters. And I got injured a little bit by doing that. So I had the fear, my anticipation was being injured again, right? So that's what was going on in my mind. And I think somebody said that the difference between fear and excitement is that the same emotion is, except that one, fear is the anticipation or expectations of a negative outcome.
Yes.
So, but the feeling is the same. So if you have an expectation or anticipation,
physiologically, it feels the same exact way in our bodies. It's just how we're in the habit of interpreting it or labeling it.
Is that going to be good or bad? So what I decided to do is, okay, so now the only difference is just an anticipation of maybe being injured. That's not a good outcome I should have in my mind. So I've started to feel that I would just emerge from the water, being happy that I did it, and being so excited to do it again. So my expectation was not the same. So now I had more an excitement with positive outcome. Mm-hmm. And then we use the mantra, and the trick is stop waiting, because the longer you wait, this is where it starts to hurt so much, like you said, in a journey.
Yeah.
Imagine if this lady kept on having fear and fear and fear and fear and fear until she's there. Like, she had an harness before. She was close to a tree before. She climbed a ladder before. Now is the time to have fear, but not for the longest journey ever. I mean, it's like going to a roller coaster and wait for an hour and a half and be scared for an hour and a half until you're in the seat.
Yeah.
It's pain.
I
think it's unnecessary suffering.
It is. Yeah. So resilience element, how did you come to that? I know you told me about it when we spoke previously, and I love how you came to that branding and the meaning behind it. So share with us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it was a divine intervention, because at the time after the 3-day, I knew, okay, so it's going to be about resilience. And then, I had no excuse not to do it, because I've watched some other people doing documentaries, and they were young and they didn't have any experience. And so 2 documentaries, their names were Abundance Factor or Abundance Code. So I felt, okay, so resilience factor, resilience code. And I looked on the domain or GoDaddy, and I think it was taken. So I thought, well, what is resilience? And so I felt that it was an element that we all had. It's just a matter of reactivating it. I felt that we all had that inner power inside of us that we needed to reawaken. So I looked at resilience element or the resilience element, and it was free. And then I felt, wow, this is good. And then just to validate, I felt if I just go RE for resilience element, what would I find? And so the acronym that came in was rhenium. So if you look at rhenium in the periodic table, that's an element that at the time had the highest boiling point of all the elements. So I felt, wow, this is the most resilient element of all. So this became the logo, and the atomic number on it is 75. And I felt, well, what can I do with the 75? And so I believe there's, usually between 6 and 8 areas of your life. So I said, well, can I make it 7? Absolutely. So there's 7 categories of your life.
I love it.
And in my formula of resilience, because they say that rhenium is a byproduct, so it doesn't come like right away like this. It's a mix of different things. So or a byproduct of it. So I felt that resilience is a byproduct of different components. And so I have 5 components. And now we're going to also talk about 5 practices of resilience with the partnership that I have with, I already mentioned her name, Taryn. So everything works amazingly well.
I love it.
And we call it RE75. Yeah.
Such beautiful synchronicity.
Yeah, and then it became the logo, and so far everybody loved it. And it's awesome.
So can you talk a little bit more about some of those elements that you were just naming, the 5 or?
Yeah, definitely. So not to talk about the 5 practices, which is maybe another podcast with Taryn.
Yeah.
For the components, I asked myself if I have the biggest goal in my life, which to me was, for example, the movie, or if I looked at everything that I was able to accomplish, what were the components of that success? And those 5 components are, first one is clarity. We already talked about it, right? So how do you find clarity? So if you know where you're going, that's your goalpost. That's a pretty good thing to have, right? So as clear as possible is always the way to go. And then number 2 was conviction. So you can interview a lot of different athletes or people that have made it so far. They usually have a lot of reasons why it was so important for them. So that's a big, why would you go to the gym every day and spend 6 hours of your life to go to the Olympics, as an example? It's because you have a big conviction. You have a lot of reasons why. So conviction was the second component. The third one was certainty, because in some shape or form, you interview these people that, of course I know I'm going to go to the Olympics. Or the best example.
There's no question.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a 100% certainty in their mind that they will achieve it, or that no matter what, they're going to be taken care of. So you look at kids, when we started to walk, I mean, for us, was that 90% certainty we're going to walk? Like we're just looking at all the people walking, and we were not walking yet. It didn't matter how many times we would fall and fail. We're thinking, I know I'm going to walk. Nobody said, oh, you know what? I'm done with trying. I think I'm going to crawl right now. I'm that's it. I'm just crawling. And then the fourth component is commitment. So now you have to have action steps. You have your big goal. What are you going to do on a daily basis? And I like to say that the problem with resolutions that we have normally during the year, or the beginning of the year, is that our commitments are too big. So what I mean by that is, some people can say, I just want to go to the gym, and I'll go 3 times this week and for 90 minutes. And you're asking them, well, what was the last time you went to the gym? 4 months ago. Okay. Have you ever had a session of 90 minutes? No, not really. It was 60. Well, I think it's a little bit too big. How about you just go 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes,
start small.
2 times. That's it. Like small steps. Then you'll get excited. You'll say, you know what? I can have another 5 minutes. So it's easy. You can do a check mark. Yeah, I've done that. Like same thing with meditation. People.
That's exactly how I teach meditation. Because when I was being taught, it was 40 minutes a day. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I can tell you right now. And if that's a prescription or the formula, that's not for me. But I don't believe that to be true. So I tell my clients, start with 30 seconds, start with a minute, start in your car.
Exactly.
Like, meet yourself where you're at. Because if you don't meet yourself where you're at, you're never going to get to the next step.
Yeah. And then you start to get some progress and some results, and you feel, that 30 seconds put me like way more calm. And then you want to do it longer. You realize the benefits, and you're just excited. It becomes
more self-motivating.
Yeah.
Rather than, I have to go do this.
Exactly. So that's to me is a commitment. And then you can do all of it. You can, be clear, the clarity, the conviction, the certainty, and the commitment. most of the time what's going to happen is you're going to hit the wall. And because, you've done all it right, except that, what are you going to do if you hit the wall? Are you going to stop? Are you going to bounce forward? And so now I felt that the last component was courage. So you got to be able to continue no matter what happened, no matter the adversity, the setback. And so for me, if I can summarize courage, is really being able to, raise your vibration, put yourself back, give you a tap on your shoulder sometimes, realize what you've done, what you've accomplished, maybe have a gratitude or an act of kindness, really just raising
also
your vibration.
Also the vulnerability too, to say this is hard and I can still do this. Forgiveness,
it was a big one, self-love, and you continue. And then that's, basically cultivating courage so that you keep on going. And those are the 5 components that I think that if you
framework.
Yeah, because I really feel that if you do all of it, you have all of that at a high level, you will achieve everything for sure. Like, you know where you're going. It's certainty, it's conviction, commitment, and courage. You'll do it.
Well, and the mindset is just so powerful. For those who are listening, won't be able to see, but for, if we one day get this out on video, you see the earrings I'm wearing. They're diamond earrings.
Okay.
Years ago, I was at Disneyland and I lost one of my diamonds. And I discovered it was lost close to 11 o'clock at night after I had been in Disneyland and California Adventure all day long since like 8 a.m. that morning. And when I discovered it was lost, I'm like, I'm going to go find it. And my ex-husband and the other friends we were with, they're like, you're going to go find a diamond in Disneyland? I'm like, absolutely, I'm going to go find it. And I think they thought I was nuts. But like I had I had all 5 of those components. As you're talking, I'm like, this is like my diamond in the Disneyland story. And there was no question in my mind I wasn't going to find it. It was just a matter of where it was. And exactly. We were in line for a ride, and I weaved my way out of the line. And I asked a employee for a flashlight because it was kind of before cell phones had, flashlights with me. It was 11 o'clock at night. And within about 5 minutes, I found the diamond.
Wow.
And I got back in line in time for the ride before they even got on. And they were all like amazed that I come back with this diamond in my hand. The post of the earring was bent because it had been stepped on, but it was there. And it was like there was not a single doubt that I just had to go do it. Mm-hmm. And I think about that experience often when I'm like, how am I going to bite off this project? How am I going to, get divorced, raise my kids, open a private practice, start a podcast, build an online course, fill retreats? Because almost all of it was like, of course I am. And the same mentality of course I'm going to find my diamond in Disneyland, which was essentially a needle in a haystack, right? I mean, I could have been anywhere. I knew I'd find it.
And let me ask you a question. I'm curious about that because were you okay with not finding it?
That thought never once even popped into my mind.
Okay.
It wasn't meant to be lost.
So
what I really felt.
I like, you probably heard of Joe Dispenza, right? They say remembering your future. So your future was, you had it in your hand, you had the emotion already. So it was a certainty. And so you just, and I think that for some times, for depending on the subject, I believe that it's good to also be detached from the outcome, which brings that certainty level at 100%. Because, I remember the story of one of my friends, and at the time, he didn't know if he had to continue with his wife, and it was a difficult situation. I had 2 kids, and then he did that exercise, which was a really good exercise, and I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times after that for myself. And it's having a letter, and he wrote a letter, and he said, here's how my life is great and amazing with my wife, and here's how my life is amazing without my wife. So it's like, if we're living in this world, that's how it's going to look like. And if I'm living in this world, that's how it's going to look like. So both options are great. Now it's just a matter to choose. And at first he shared that letter with his ex-wife, and they were together for a little while, and then it ended up not working, and it was great. So it's great either or, left or right. Yeah. It's good, Yeah,
I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. So had I not found the diamond, I would have then at that point felt like it was meant to be lost and it was meant for something different. In that moment, right? Like in that moment, it wasn't meant to be lost. And I've had so much synchronicity in my life that I fully believe the outcome was exactly what was supposed to happen.
It was annoying. I felt you had, like, you saw it happening.
Yeah.
And you didn't play the game as I might lose it. You went in all in. I know it's gonna be there. And if it would have happened, like what I like what you said, you would have been, okay, well, then that's how it was supposed to be. But you didn't go into, oh, I might fail. You're like, no, I'm 100%.
No. Yeah. So I know but I think this is a skill. I think I naturally have that, but I think it's a skill that can be easily cultivated. It's, like any of these that maybe at times I have it less, so I need to remember it so I can build upon it. But I wouldn't be in the business I'm in, and I'm sure you would say the same, if you didn't believe anyone can cultivate these tools.
Absolutely. And I believe that we can all create magic or miracles because it's just a matter of making that decision, being certain about it. And we are so powerful. I even went to a workshop this weekend. Was with Craig Braden, and we have so much that we can do with our mind, and it's just a matter of the story that we tell to ourselves. So if we tell ourselves we're not good enough, well, then we're not good enough. If we believe that we are good enough and that we have something of value to share to the world and that we deserve it, then it's a different entirely outcome.
Yeah.
So I believe that absolutely we can create anything, and and we have the choice. And the beauty is you can say all day long that this circumstances happened to you and then you're going to be owned by it, or you take over. You're like, all right, this is what happened. Now what? And one of the thought that came to me while we were talking is, and that's from Byron Katie, another great coach. And she said, who would I be without the thought of? And
I've been on retreat with her. I've been on retreat with her too. Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. That her 4-question framework of, I give that to my clients all the time. And I'll have to qualify. I've seen cases where it doesn't actually apply. And for the majority of it, when we're stuck in our head and stuck in our thoughts, it's 100% an amazing framework. And for those who don't know it, I'll quickly say the 4 questions, because Byron Katie calls this the work that we all do to get unstuck from believing our negative thought patterns. The first one is it true? So if the thought you're stuck on is, I can't do this, right? I'm not worthy. I can't do this. It's too big, whatever it is. The question we ask ourselves is it true? And our immediate response is going to be to want to say, well, yeah, it feels true, right? Because if we didn't feel like it was true, we wouldn't be stuck on the thought, I can't do this. The second question is, how do I know it to be true? So there we start looking for the evidence base to support the thought that when we go to search for the evidence, we don't have the evidence to support, I can't do this. Right now we tap into where the fear or anxiety or I can't stand next to a tree or, whatever it is. The third question is, how do I feel when I believe the thought to be true? Oh, I feel insecure. I feel a pit in my stomach. I feel immobilized. I feel worthless. I feel fear. I already said that. I feel anxiety. I feel helpless. Whatever it is. And then the fourth question is, who would you be without the thought, I can't do it? Well, if without the thought, I wouldn't feel the fear, immobilization, anxiety, pit in my stomach. So without feeling that, you're then free to go move forward, right? Bounce forward, journey forward, whatever it is. So it's a beautiful framework.
Absolutely. And I've just made me think of the story you just mentioned about jumping or, the zip lining. Imagine like those questions.
Yeah.
Great gems. I love it.
It is. Oh, friends, I feel like we could talk for hours. We'll have to have you again on the podcast. When do you anticipate the next steps of your documentary being at stage of sharing?
Yeah, we're aiming at November is a big aggressive goal, and that's okay. We would like to unveil that to the public in November. And we will have a crowdfunding campaign that will become before that. So because we'd like to inform all the world about what we're up to And like I said, they'll have tremendous value by being backers, because not only they'll have access to the documentary, the audio files, the video files, they'll get access to an app that will truly help them to maintain their resilience at a highest level and reawaken their inner power anytime they want. And we want to make it fun and gamified, so it's going to be extremely exciting for us and all of us. And yeah, awesome. That's what we're up to.
All right, well, maybe that'd be a great time to have you back on, so we can really get the more availability out to the masses, and let people know all the amazing work that's being produced on your end.
That would be awesome, Jory. Yeah.
So in the meantime, how can people find you? What's the best way to connect if they want to learn more about the documentary or Resilience Element, RE? What's the best way?
Yeah, it's easy. It's two ways. One is www.resilienceenelement.com or theresilienceenelement.com, and they can get a free guide on the resilience element formula. So what we discussed about today, the 5 components, they can gladly download that with exercises. It's everything that we talked about. It was a great summary. And yeah, that's it. And
we'll have those links in the show notes as well, so anyone listening can go to the show notes and get those links. Francis, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we've connected, and it's been really fun talking today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jory.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.